welcome you all to this new course on bioelectrochemistry. So, this is a short course which constitutes 20 lectures, and the course has been divided into 4 different modules, and the whole idea of the course is to expose the biologist who use different kind of electrochemical tools time and again, or those who wants to use it, but they do not have a kind of a crash course where they can kind of get a feel of the power of electrochemical tools, what they can use for biological applications. So, to start off with, today is the first lecture out of the 20 lectures. So, what really we deal in bioelectrochemistry? So, before getting into the technical details, let us talk about some of the day-to-day stuff where electrochemistry is being regularly used and we are aware of it, but it is just we do not have a theoretical and practical framework to visualize what is happening. So, all of us uses cell phones, we use computers, they all have this component called battery. We always ask that what is the life of battery, or how long you can charge the battery and it will remain there, right. We have so many different models of cell phones which are coming, some which can store once upon completely charged can store the charge for say 8 hours, some for only for say 4 hours, so on and so forth. Similarly, in all the labs wherever you people are working, they have pH meter. pH, which is essentially you are measuring the hydrogen ion concentration. So, how a pH meter works? Then you have heard about this word called fuel cells, how it works. So, all these discrete things, or we talk about electrophysiological recordings, there are so many electrode, implanted electrode, or surface electrodes used in the body, how they work, what are the basis of it. So, the electrochemistry is the subject where we deal with all these kind of measuring devices in terms of electrode applications, in terms of energy storage devices, where we talk about the batteries, supercapacitors, capacitors, cells, a hybrid between battery and capacitor called capillary. Similarly, fuel cells, all this wide ranging area of measuring electrical potentials and storing energy, and even to the level of harvesting energy falls under a big umbrella called electrochemistry. So, when we see the word, look at this word electrochemistry, there are two separate words which comes in mind. One is electro, or something to do with electricity, the other one is chemistry. So, the word itself kind of indicates that we will be talking about something which is at the interface of electricity and chemistry, but then how these are linked to each other. As a matter of fact, electrochemistry is the subject where we correlate these two different fields of science, which is electricity and chemistry, and this is fairly old and it continuously evolved or evolving over period of time, and we will talk about where all these things evolve. So, let us make a beginning. So, the course title, as it says, it is Bioenergetics electrochemistry. Okay. So, I talk about two things. When we talk about electro, we are talking about electricity and of course, chemistry. So, relation between electricity and chemistry is what makes it electrochemistry. But you have another word which is bio. So, in terms of bio, that means there are biological systems which have the ability or which can contribute in generation of electricity. Because when we talk about electricity, we talk about movement of charges from one point to another. Okay. Let us talk about the fundamentals. When we talk about electricity, essentially what we mean. When we talk about any kind of charge transfer, it could be either electron, it could be proton, it could be some form of an ion. So, there is a flow of these charge particles, flow of charges from point A to point B. Okay. Now, this flow of charges from point A to point B is happening over a period of time. Time could be anything, it could be millisecond, microsecond, picosecond, or on the other side second, minutes, likewise so on and so forth. So, whenever we introduce time, we talk about a at the rate of, or there is a rate. So, at one point, suppose you are standing at a traffic signal, how many cars are passing per unit time. So, in other words, whenever we talk about current, it is essentially movement of these charged particles across a point, across a specific point per unit time. So, every minute you average it out over a period of time, and I say every minute or every second or every x unit time, this many charged particles are moving through that particular point. So, that is what we talk about when we talk about. So, now the next question comes, why at all from point A a charge will move to point B? There has to be a reason and a rhyme for a charge to move from point A to point B. A charge will only move from point A to point B when between point A and point B there will be some form of gradient or a potential difference. Okay. So, unless otherwise point A is sitting at a higher potential as compared to point B, there is no way that the charge will be drifting like this, unless otherwise you give extra energy into the system where you can make a charge to flow in the reverse direction, but that needs an extra effort, or that extra effort is nothing but that extra energy what you are putting in order to push something against the gradient. So, this against the gradient is an energy intensive process as compared to the situation where from point A to point B the flow will take place by a spontaneous process. Now, what we see is every material has a certain capacity to allow the charges to escape from its surface. In other words, say for example, there are two materials I say material A and material B. Now, whether a charge particle will travel from material A to material B or a charge particle will travel in the reverse direction B to A. So, one thing what we decided and we discussed just now, unless otherwise A is sitting at a higher potential as compared to B, the charge will not flow spontaneously from A to B, right. So, for this, so if I map it on an axis, so this has to sit at a higher potential as compared to where B is sitting. This is A, this is B, right, and this is the path of charge flowing down. Now, what determines this different potential? This is the inherent property of nature, where different materials are sitting at different potential, or in other words, this is also called the work function of that particular component. So, every material, everything which has evolved in nature over period of time has an unique value or a unique number of holding charges with it or donating charges with it. So, say for example, if I am standing at say number x and you are standing at another number y, and if x is higher than y, then I will be able to donate the charges to you. So, there are always potential difference between different materials, and biology is one such most beautiful example where such hopping of charges takes place, because there are series of proteins which are present, which allows the flow of electron, because those proteins sits at different, say for example, one protein sits here, one here, one here, one here. So, if this is called P1, this is called P2, this is called P3, this is called P4. So, the electron hops like this. Of course, if they are in close proximity, electron also can hop like this also, electron can hop like this also, or any charge, not only electron, it can hop like this also, this also. Okay. So, there are several examples in biological systems, especially these examples are widely seen in mitochondria and chloroplast, where you see the electron transport chains. Okay. So, these electron transport chains are nothing but there are proteins which are sitting across the mitochondrial membrane, where the flow is governed by the different potential of that particular protein. So, this is where comes the concept of introducing biological systems, where you can study the flow of charges across biological system based on their different potential difference. Okay. Now, when we talk about flow of charges, now comes the next concept. Conceptually, now there are two processes which happens in nature. One process is called oxidation, the other process is called reduction. Oxidation is a process whereby some X material, I say A, donates an electron and attains a positive charge. Okay. So, this is the electron which A is donating, and this is the positive charge which it is attaining. Similarly, reduction is a situation where a material accepts an electron and becomes either negatively charged, or if it is in a positive state, it will become neutral. So, accepting an electron is a process of reduction, oxidation is a process of donating an electron. So, you are giving away an electron and you are accepting an electron. As a matter of fact, all the reactions in nature and most of the biological systems is about oxidation and reduction. Either a species will accept an electron or a species will donate an electron. Okay. So, when we talk about a situation where you are donating or accepting an electron, this clearly boils down to a situation, just follow my highlight, is flow of charges. So, in other word, this oxidation and reduction leads to flow of charges, which leads to generation of current. Generation of electricity or current electricity. It may be a small amount, it may be some picoampere, nanoampere, whatever, that does not matter. Do not take into account that what is the magnitude of that current, but what is important for you to realize it, indeed all these systems, by virtue of this oxidation and reduction, leads to flow of charges. In other words, there is a current which is generated due to the mobility or movement of the charged particles. Now, what is important is, say for example, I have a situation, say for example, A plus B. Okay. Say for example, this is a situation where we talk about. Let us take a much simpler example. Okay. Say for example, I take iron Fe3 plus. Okay. Fe3 plus accepts an electron and it becomes Fe2 plus. Fine, because you accept an electron and you get, there is a reduction. R stands for here reduction process. Similarly, you do the next thing, you take a vanadium which is standing at 2 plus state and this vanadium gets oxidized by donating an electron, and if you add up this reaction, what you land up with is Fe3 plus plus V2 plus, and that leads to Fe2 plus plus V3 plus, right. Now, if you look at this simple reaction, so this is where oxidation has occurred. So, in other words, vanadium got oxidized, whereas iron got reduced. Now, in this situation, Fe3 plus is considered as an oxidizing agent which itself getting reduced. So, these are the term which you have to remember, oxidizing agent. So, oxidizing agent is an agent which gets reduced. Similarly, you have the next one which is vanadium, which is reducing agent, gets oxidized. Just remember this basic concept all throughout. Now, why Fe3 plus could donate an electron to vanadium, or vice versa, how vanadium could, or rather if how Fe3 plus could accept an electron and how vanadium could throw an electron. This part is determined when I said you that every material has a power, either you can call it in terms of its reducing power or you can call it in terms of its oxidizing power. So, every material, so you have to take one scale, right. Every material could be classified in a way that, say for example, material A, material B, material C, material D, material E, material F. Every material could be either classified in oxidizing series or reducing series. So, you can say that A has more power to get oxidized than B, B has more power than C, C has more power than B, likewise, or B has more power than A, C has more power than A, D has more power than A, E has more power than A, F has more power than E. Similarly, for the reducing series, exactly that way you can set it, who has more power. So, you really can in nature, the species which are born to donate electrons, you can classify them in a series where you can say that X has more power to donate electron than Y, Y has more power to donate electron than Z, likewise and so forth. So, essentially what we are talking about, we are trying to figure out that in nature how the electron moves from one point to another, and there are two concepts. So, I will be closing the class today again highlighting the two concepts. The first concept is any kind of flow of charges constitute electric current, okay? And that flow of charges per unit time determines what we eventually will talk about, the current electricity in terms of ampere, the units, and flow of electron from one point to another is governed by the free energy change, or in other word by the potential difference between the 2 points. So, with these two basic concepts, I will close in the first lecture. The next lecture will elaborate what all we will be covering in the first week, a little bit of more details, and slowly we will go to the crux of some of these basic phenomena of electrochemistry in relation to biological systems. Thank you.